Today on the Daily Review, we discuss a movie that nobody's thought about since 1996, and even then, they didn't think much of it. It's The Fan with Robert De Niro and Wesley Snipes, and yours truly, Joe LaRocca. Today on a very special episode of the Daily Review. Instead of pushing the intro button, I pushed the stop streaming button. Man, I really got to get, if we're going to make it fully professional, I got to get one of those stream box things so I don't have to, so I can just do one button pushes because that's very unprofessional. All these horrible mistakes. A student yesterday was like, you should make this a podcast because it's basically a podcast, which I realized that it is essentially a podcast. Although you won't be able to see Odie or my hands or the movie poster. But yeah, no, he made a point because I want it to be live, or I want it to be, I don't want to have to edit it. That's what I'm trying to say. But I could make it a podcast just by, I exported all of them and turned them into MP3s. But you have to pay somebody to host them. I have my own website, but I don't know. I have to look into it. Because I don't know if I have enough to host it off on my own website. Because you got to host it somewhere. Like Apple and Spotify, they don't host it. You host it somewhere, and then you send the links essentially to Apple, and then they put it in the same thing. I don't mean Spotify. I mean like Stitcher or whatever. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll do that. I think it translates well because the big thing is that if you don't have YouTube Prime or whatever it's called, Red or whatever, then you can't watch this on your cell phone because you have to have the app open, and so that doesn't make any sense. And I can imagine people wanting to listen to this in their cars or on the go as opposed to sitting down and carving out 18 minutes of their day to watch me go, hey, you want to hear about a movie that sucks? It sucked. So if you could be doing 2 or 3 other things, listening to this, doing the dishes, kicking somebody in the face, juggling, it would make everybody better, right? Oh, look at Odie. She's such a cute little baby dog. She's not a baby. She's 13. She's missing an eyeball and 10 teeth were taken out this year. So she's half the dog she used to be. Anyway, here's a De Niro movie from the 90s, an interesting time period for De Niro movies where they're good, but they weren't as good as he was in the 70s and 80s. But he wasn't as crap as he was in the early 2000s. So the 90s is kind of an interesting time period where you get stuff like Ronin and when's Meet the Parents? That might be 2000. But if it's not, that's a pretty good example. And Analyze This and some, he did some comedies and he did some kind of, obviously you have Goodfellas in 1990. And what else? Cape Fear. So there's a lot of good stuff still in the 90s, but it's not the level of Raging Bull, which is unsurpassable. So I don't get it, but it's way better than Righteous Kill and all that crazy shit he did. Anyway, this movie is an American sports psychological thriller directed by Tony Scott, brother of Mr. Other Scott guy. Stars Wesley Snipes and Robert De Niro. And it says here, the film received generally negative reviews from critics and was a box office flop. Okay, cool. But it's De Niro, he plays Gil Renard, who's a knife salesman. Who's a huge fan of the San Francisco Giants, who have just signed for $40 million a new player, Bobby Rayburn, played by Wesley Snipes, who's going to be this amazing batter. Gil was a pitcher back in his day, never made it to the big leagues. And Gil's life is falling apart. It's very much like Falling Down. It's just a guy who's life just keeps kicking him in the nuts, but it's kind of because he's a jerk. He's very aggressive. So people don't, he's not doing well selling knives because people don't really like his style, He's kind of a jerk. And he's divorced and his wife gets a restraining order against him because he takes the kid to opening day of the baseball game, but then has to leave to go to a sales thing because like he might lose his job and he's got to take his kid and it's opening day and all he cares about is baseball and it's the first time Bobby Rayburn's gonna play and all these. It's actually good. There's some good, really good tension in the movie. There's like a couple scenes that I'll talk about when I get to it that are like really good. And so this movie is not bad at all. De Niro is fantastic. Like this is definitely one of his underrated performances. Like the writing isn't great, and it gets like the third act gets a little bit nuts, but De Niro is, he is trying, and you feel it, and he's super intense. And he's really intimidating. He can be like one of the scariest actors when he wants to, and I think it's just pretty damn good. Like nobody ever talks about it, but because he has like 36 other better performances. But there's some really good stuff. Again, Wesley Snipes, an actor who's kind of not given lots of credit, and he considers himself a method actor. He made people call him Blade on the set of Blade. He'd only refer to himself. Maybe that's a rumor, but I hope it's not. So yeah, it's a meeting of two method actors actually, and he looks exactly like an athlete, like totally believable. He does a good job of playing like a celebrity and an athlete, and he's cocky, but he's unsure of himself at the same time. He's got everything. It's a really great performance. It's probably the best Wesley Snipes performance I've ever seen. Like, he's got a good, I don't know, it's good. Why is that? Maybe media has just gotten so bad that now this movie seems pretty good. Anyway, so here's some of the really tense scenes. There's the opening day game is really good because they've spent like 20 minutes showing how important it is that he makes it to this meeting because he can't lose this big sales thing and his job kind of depends on it. And we know that he's like really kind of forcing his son to be super into baseball, even though the kid doesn't really give a shit and he's like a little bit too young, and he's certainly not like fanatical like his dad, just like in the stands like, bah, isn't this awesome, son? The kid's like, can I have a hot dog? That scene's amazing. Then there's a scene after that when before the restraining order, like, which ends up happening after this, he like goes to the son's house because he left him at the game, and somebody who knows the family sees the kid and brings him home, and the kid's like in bed and he's all upset, and De Niro comes in with pizza and he's like, it's okay, I brought your favorite pizza, and they're sitting there eating pizza, and while the stepfather is banging on the door, and I was like, this is intense. This is like, because they're just like, he's trying to keep it calm. It's like, whoa, what's happening here? Then later in the movie, Gil saves Bobby's son from drowning because he's just kind of like staking out. I won't get into all of it, but he kind of just like starts following Bobby around as his life really falls to pieces. He starts seeing, this was supposed to be the year that the Giants did really well, and Bobby Rayburn's having like a huge slump for all these different reasons, and he thinks it's like his responsibility to like make some sort of sacrifice and get him back on whatever, get him out of his streak. And so there's another player on the team named Primo, who is played by Benicio del Toro, who is the best. He's super convincing. It looks exactly like an athlete, baseball player. He's got the bleach blonde hair. Oh, it's so good. And so De Niro thinks he might need to take Primo out of the picture because Primo shares the same number and he wants number 11. Bobby Rayburn wants number 11. But he can't have it because the guy on the team, Primo, already has it, and they won't switch. And he thinks it's all this, like, all that sporting jinxie stuff, you gotta wear the same socks, and you gotta drive the same route, and shark fin rally cap, or whatever, So, there's a confrontation between Primo and De Niro in a sauna that is intense, really well done. And then later, let me finish that part where Gil saves Bobby's son, and this is really where the climax should have been, but and Bobby like invites Gil over to like dry off because he almost drowns at the beach or whatever, and then they have a few drinks, and then Gil is like, hey, let me pitch to you. I used to be a pitcher. Let me pitch. And he's like, okay, and they go down to the beach, And he's pitching to him, and it's like really tense because they start talking, and you start realizing, oh, Gil's a little, Bobby starts feeling, oh no, Gil's a little nutty, and then you have a guy like chucking a baseball at you. Oh, Wesley Snipes' performance in that scene is really good. Then, yeah, it's cool. And then De Niro like completely breaks from reality and like loses his gourd or whatever you say and goes completely nuts. And it's fun to watch, but it starts breaking out of the realms of reality. He kidnaps Bobby's son and is like, hit a home run or I'll kill your son. Which is like, oh no, that's too intense. It doesn't really work also because the son is not a major part of the movie until they need him to be. So it feels very much like just a writerly device, like a plot device. Like, oh, it's add Bobby's son in there. I think they could have had that be just one or two more scenes showing that Bobby really cares about his son, I don't know. Hitchcock could have pulled off the ending better, which can be said about pretty much every movie ever made. But the style is problematic in this, but not as bad as Tony Scott gets, in my opinion, with the style. Because he's super like a bombastic, flashy filmmaker, and like every single shot in this movie has that like gradient filter, 50% sky filter, like pink haze thing. And it's like, oh, don't do that on every shot. Do that for like, I don't know. Like there's shots where they do it where there's like people in it and their heads are like changing colors. Like, God, dude, that's for like scenery and stuff, I think. But I think ultimately this movie is there's too many like music cues. There's all these like there's all these like Nine Inch Nails songs and Rolling Stones songs. Just like it's too much. It's like integrated into the movie too, almost like a music video. It's too much. That's no good. That's very 90s actually. And I actually think that it's kind of like Tony Scott movies get kind of way over the top later in his career, and this one's actually fairly reasonable comparatively. And it's pretty good. I mean, I guess like compared to other De Niro movies, it's not very good, but it's interesting to watch him kind of like slowly go crazy, or not even that slowly, but I don't know. It's not that good, but if you're big acting, like watching actors, it's got a lot. I don't really know what the movie's about. I guess it's like the dangers of like wanting to be a perfectionist. Like it's impossible to be perfect. So like the pursuit can drive you crazy, if you actually think it's attainable. But I always thought that like that it's the pursuit that is the good thing. I don't know. It doesn't really make any sense because both characters like have the similarity. Both Gil and Bobby, they want to be perfect, and what Bobby realizes is that the reason he gets out of his slump is he's just got to not be so worried about it, not care so much, and like Gil takes that the wrong way, and is like, no, you got to always try and be perfect, and it's like, well, no, you got to kind of like give something up to the I don't know, to the world of mysticism. I don't know. There's something going on there, and it's not really well done. But you can watch it. It's on something. I don't know. I watched it on... Oh, it's on Amazon. It's on Amazon.clownfart.com. Anyway, it did really poorly. Let's see if there's anything... Budget $55 million. Domestic gross $18 million. Ooh, kicking the beans. Rotten Tomato, 37%. Yeah, it's definitely not a 30%. The audience survey on CinemaScore give it a B-. That's much closer. A queasy tale of obsession that succeeds in making audiences uncomfortable but strikes out when it comes to delivering the thrills. Yeah, I kind of agree with that. Let me click on... Let me list the soundtrack. Who's on the soundtrack? Oh, okay. Yeah, Terrence Trent D'Arby. Massive Attack. Black Grape. Honky. Foreskin 500. Hans Zimmer. Dude, Hans Zimmer's so hit or miss. This is weird because there's none of the Nine Inch Nails songs on there. and there's none of the Rolling Stones songs because they couldn't get the money for those, Oh, there's a really good scene where once he's kidnapped the kid and he's pitching to the kid and he's gone and seen his old buddy who turns out to just be like a friend from childhood, and he's like, you're the best there is, like baseball catcher or whatever. And they both, the kid and the friend, start realizing that De Niro's like lost it, and so he's the guy's playing catcher, De Niro's pitching, and the little boy is batting, and they're like out in the rain, and he's just going, kid, hang in there, kid, hang in there. It's awesome because they both know that they're like, uh-oh. Gil, the knife salesman, has gone disgruntled. That's not good. All right, I'm not sure what's going on here. I'm just gonna pick a new, see if anything happens when I do that. I at least know why we're not getting sound at the moment, which is a good thing. Oh, jeez. So yeah, I mean, so like now, if this were a podcast, wouldn't I have to like cut out this stuff now, just to like fiddle? All right, talk to you tomorrow, guys.